that. I'd love to
Good morning, folks. Neil Clements here, the real deal Neil. Neil Clements, barrister, solicitor, and running for Councilor at Large here in St. John. Just trying to turn off the mayor's show.
Just one sec.
So,
how much money did you raise for
as I said to you folks last week,
Christmas project?
Let me just turn this off. I said to you folks last week I was going to come back, and as you can see, I have handled the technology issues. I've been watching the mayor's live this morning, and I got to tell you, it was very informative. They got the mayor, Don Darling, Courtney Perk, Caitlin Dean, Jeff McAloon, Mohammed Baga, Jeff Roach, Lanigan, and a young girl named Devin, and I don't know her last name, so I do apologize. But a lot of what they talked about today, look, I've said on my last live that, yes, one of my issues is social justice. You're already aware that my platform is change and growth, or growth and change, in that order. But because I've said before, I am a black man, so social justice is definitely one of my issues. I'm real impressed to see everybody on this panel with the mayor this morning carrying that weight. Very impressed to see, and everybody on this panel except for one person is Caucasian, and they're carrying that weight, all right? As such, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to feel as though I shouldn't speak about it. I appreciate our allies talking about it. But for me, it is also another issue. But before I get into my main content today, so what I want to talk about today are a couple of actual issues that we can fix, right? And I also want to talk about, competency. Now, I'm doing this because I believe I'm competent to do this job. I'm doing this, and I'll just reach over here. I'm not Kayleigh McEnany, and I don't have everything tabbed. But I'm reading this content so that I'm competent and knowledgeable and able to do this job. Councilor at Large for the city of St. John. I'm reading Work Plan 2021 because I want to know how to serve you best. I've read the Code of Conduct because I want to know how to serve you best. I've read St. John's restructuring plan because I want to know how to serve you best. A couple of comments coming out of the mayor's live. Mohammed Baga made a couple of comments, and one of them that really caught my attention about permanent residents and their right to vote. Now, last year in the provincial campaign, I had an opportunity to speak with several permanent residents, and I have some clients who are permanent residents, and these people are business owners, taxpayers, etc., but they have no right to vote in a municipal election. Insanity, right? So this is one of my causes. I make no promises, that's a provincial thing, but this is one of my causes to ensure that at some point these people get the right to vote by lobbying the legislature for that. Now, it's not particularly a municipal authority, obviously, but it's a municipal issue. Because as Mohammed said, you can be inviting, you can allow folks to have a business, you can allow them to be involved in the city, but at the end of the day, in order to get them to stay and be committed to the city, you want them to be involved in the election process, not have them standing out there, take your taxes, take your income, but we don't want your vote. So that's one of my issues, most definitely. What I also thought was most impressive is that there are more than 30 plus candidates in this election, which I think is incredible. Now, that makes it tough for you to understand who to vote for. So do your research, right? Listen to what the candidates are saying. I think there's an opportunity coming up here very soon. March 31st, candidate engagement. And by the way, folks, you're all wondering, what, Neil, I haven't seen you in the paper. How come the Telegraph's not talking about you? Because these are my documents, and I'm going to file them this week. And then I'm sure there'll be all kinds of TJ play, which I care less about, because this is not a popularity contest, as I've said many times. Also, in that discussion with Mohammed Baga on the mayor's live, I learned about the Lost Votes campaign. I think Joanna Killen posted that, another really like-minded candidate. And I want you to go to the Lost Votes campaign and have a look at what they're doing, because I thought it was quite incredible. So the mayor said something, and again, I'm going to just do some quick synopsis of what they were talking about in the mayor's live, because it was very, very informative. But right now, in the city of St. John, we need in the region, to maintain the economy that we have, we need 2,000 more people a year. And we are not doing that, right? So how are we going to do that? Well, with immigration. I mean, I know we've got a lot of folks coming in from Ontario right now, and COVID's a pusher of that, is causing that to the great degree. But how are we going to keep the new BIPOC community, right? These are the people that are going to make up those 2,000 for the most part. And if they don't stay, that's a net out influx, and we have a problem when it comes to our economy. Caitlin Dean, who's brilliant from what I understand, she made a comment on the mayor's live about making promises. You know, she can't stand folks that make promises. Well, I understand how corporate boards work, of which a councillor is a member, right? Like a director. And that's a group think, right? There can't be, I promise to do this, I promise to do that, because we have to vote as members of council, right, on the changes. Excuse me. And I thought that was a really great decision. And I got a quote from her, and she said during a budget balancing project, I balanced the budget, but it's not a city I think I'd want to live in. And I want it to be a city that everybody wants to live in, which is why I'm doing this, right? To promote change, right? To promote observable, competent change. That's what I represent, besides growth. Okay? What I also noted from that is they had one of the folks on the show was Jeff McAloon, and he made the point of, I'm looking for people who are educated about, how this wheel spins. And again, I know it's a prop, but that's what all of this paper's about for me, okay? Again, I don't have it tabbed like Kayleigh McEnany, the president's old press expert, but our communications director. However, the point is getting the information and being educated on the information, right? So other high points of that discussion, which is still ongoing, is, what have they done in the community? Well, I'm not going to go through my resume, but all you have to do is go on my Real Deal Neil page or the Law Office of Neil Clements page and have a look at what I've done and what I've been doing in the community for social change, right? Another one of the high points and discussions in the mayor's live was poverty. Well, look, I think I'm going to be speaking on the 19th or 26th, or be involved in a symposium with the UNB Urban Communities folks, which will be very interesting. And as a result of that, and I want to thank Stephanie Murphy for focusing me on some research relative to Live St. John. So I've been doing some research on Live St. John, and when it comes to poverty, look, I'm a lawyer now, okay? But I grew up as a child of a single mom with 3 kids and no money. We understand poverty. I understand poverty. I understand poverty in the last 5 years, because I'm a lawyer now, and I've made good money in my life, but I've also slept on my buddy's couch when I had no place to live in the last 5 years. All right, so it's all about, as I've said many times, when you fall down, try and land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up, right? And that's what I plan on. That's what I did then, and I see that with our city. Our city has fallen on its back, but we can still look up as a community, and if we can look up, we can get up. Am I making any sense here? As a city, as a community. Thank you, Adam McCluskey. Vote for Neil. Please share that comment. Look, back to the social justice piece. Excuse me. There are 3 BIPOC candidates in this particular election, Miss Hughes, Miss Stevens, and also myself. That is the first time in New Brunswick's history, let alone St. John's history, that any community or any common council has had brown or otherwise candidates. That should tell you that there's some change afoot. And we welcome you to be involved in that change. Don't vote for me because I'm brown. Vote for me because I'm competent and I know what I'm doing. And I'm not running a popularity contest, as I've said. Right? It's not about popularity. As Mr. McAloon said in the Mayor's Live, we're looking for people that have a clue. Right? We're not looking for people that make crazy promises to industry or other private interest groups. Now, people are asking me, Neil, I'm not seeing you at this association or that association. I'm not at those association meetings because when you go to those association meetings, it's because you are going there to make promises. You're going there to direct that lobby towards your campaign. And I really do believe that those groups need to be looking at the candidates and deciding which one they want based on their competencies, right? Not the fact that they showed up at their meeting and made promises, which I won't do. Now, I've been talking to a lot of colleagues about, how I'm running my campaign. And many of them have said, you're crazy for not taking money. But I don't want money because then I'm behooving to the people who gave me the money. And I'm not asking anybody to show me the money. I'm asking you to show me your vote by supporting me and committing to providing your vote to this particular BIPOC candidate, not because I'm BIPOC, not because I'm black, but because I'm competent to do the job. Now, what makes me competent? And I will get into my issues here soon because we only have an hour today. Well, I don't know. I have a Bachelor of Arts. I have a Bachelor's of Law. I've been a lawyer for quite some time. I've been in school basically my whole life educating myself about, what I do. I'm aware of governance structures. I know how to read legislation and how to interpret legislation. And also, in case you haven't seen my Real Deal Neil Facebook page or the Clements Law Office Facebook page, I'm a pretty social guy. And I want what's best for the community. But I suffer no fools. And I probably shouldn't say that, but I don't, right? I'm 0 to 60 when it comes to issue and understanding. And I see answers very quickly, so I go to them, right? And I want to work with folks who similarly understand that whole process of analyzing information, right? For the good of the city. I'm not trying to look smart or make anybody else look smart. I'm going to use my tools to uplift our city and get us out of this hole that we're in. I think it was Jeff Roach who also said we're looking for people who are competent, right? And all of the folks on the mayor's panel this morning, including Courtney Perk, who challenged all of us most recently, all of the candidates, to answer some simple questions about diversity, equality, and equity, and a few other things, was also a great contributor to that particular show that's still ongoing. So, again, my point here is I'm not asking for your popularity vote. I'm not asking you to vote for the Real Deal Neil because he does great videos. I'm asking you to look at the 30 candidates, right? And I'm asking you to look at them and decide if they're competent. And I'm extraordinarily, which is not usually my style, asking you to look hard at the BIPOC candidates. There are 3 black candidates in this race, and they have to be, you should look at us a little harder. And that's our life, right? Black folks have to work harder, run faster, right? Sound smarter. My mother always said, you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to be better than the rest if you want to make it. So I know that's the situation for these 3 candidates, including myself. Okay? But I want you to look at those candidates because, one, they have a different perspective about this community, which we need because we haven't had a BIPOC perspective on council for, 30 years, 20 years. There've only ever been 2 BIPOC candidates that won, Fred Hodges and Carl White, and now there are 3 running at the same time, which is the first in New Brunswick's history. We've made history just by existing, and on Monday, when I file my nomination papers, that will be it. History made. Excuse me. So, now to get into the real issues there's a couple of items that I want to discuss today, and one of them is, let me just get my documents out here as I was pushing around my props. I actually moved around some props that I need to speak to. Now, the first thing that I want to speak to is this annual workforce report. Look, I'm not going to try to give you information about every page because that's not the purpose of this. One, I want to show you that I'm committed to educating myself on the city's issues. I'm not just out there making crazy promises. Not to suggest I've heard crazy promises, but I have heard one or two that are just not appropriate. I'm trying to commit to you that I'm identifying the issues here in a committed and competent way. So as I went through the workforce report, there were some challenges, for sure. And I've already spoken to one of them most recently when it came to the wages for the city of St. John. I'm not becoming a counselor for money. That is for sure. But there are some challenges. So I'm going to go through some highlights that I made here in this workforce report. Now, they put it in the front, which is rare. I'm a health and safety expert, and the health and safety stuff usually gets buried in the back of reports such as this. But they put it in the front. So please do not blame me, or should I say, do not... I could not miss it because I am a health and safety expert, notwithstanding a legal expert. When I opened page 3 of the workforce report, I noticed that the total employee accidents were 51 and the lost time accidents were almost half of that, or more than half of that at 24. Sorry, almost half at 24. That's not tenable on an ongoing basis. I've been in health and safety for a long time. And for the number of people in this city who work as employees to have 24 lost time accidents, in private industry, this workforce wouldn't even get hired. They'd be too much of a risk in any project I've ever worked on. So, and I'm not blaming the workforce. It's from the top down, health and safety. When it comes, and I see that, and we'll get into it, I see that the city is trying to create some leading indicators. But leading indicators are, only good if you're also analyzing in depth the lagging indicators. So I see the city is making some moves relative to implementing leading indicators because it is true. Companies that track their leading indicators or implement leading indicators, they will have less accidents. But presently, that's not the city's situation. They're having a lot of accidents. As I scroll through this, page 6 of this same report, and I'm going to get more into the health and safety because there's about $300,000 the city could be saving. $300,000. What could we do with that, right? In the context of our city economy. So, they do some mapping. Now, I thought it was interesting that they're doing some demographic mapping within the city, and they do pay attention to the split between male and female, but they don't pay any attention to the split relative to diversity. And I know why, because there are no BIPOC community members working for the city. That in itself is a challenge, and I think we all can agree with that. One of the other issues that I see here is in that workforce report, they're talking about turnover. They're talking about succession planning. They're talking about bringing in experience and fresh faces. What does that mean? Experience and fresh faces. Again, without being without being so committed to diversity, that means we need to be bringing in more different ideas, different perspectives, black, brown, or otherwise, folks, in the city management or in the city personnel and in the administration. Again, I'm just stating the fact. If I go over there on a Monday and I count every employee, not one of them is going to be black, brown, or otherwise. Right, which is why they only count male and females in this report. But they don't, what I'm surprised about is they don't commit to focusing on diversity when they speak to the new, fresh, experienced faces. Because we've got a whole lot of new brown faces in St. John that are experienced and are fresh. And they are committed to this city. So, why not in your recruiting practices focus on the new BIPOC community? Just a suggestion. Oh, wait, it's because we have no policies that would direct the administration to do so. And I commit to motioning for that. I would move all day for that. Because we need new perspectives and not just new faces, but we need new perspectives. Now, I see here, look, in the 2019 or 2018, the city hired a couple of cultural groups to come in and provide some diversity training. Okay, that's great, but why? They're not engaging with diverse communities at work. So I didn't understand why that training happened. If you're going to train folks how to be inclusive and understand diversity, you might as well give them a chance to express that new education by engaging with a diverse employment community within the city of St. John. I'm just saying that might be a good idea as I go through this workforce report. There are some other issues that there are some other areas that I think we need to comment on. So as I said, the city experienced 24 lost time accidents, which led to, people not being able to return immediately to the workforce. And in the report, they provided some tables for us to look at. Annual cost of claims in 2019, $298,960. Look, in my previous health and safety experience, I've worked for the biggest engineering firm on the planet and the smallest company in St. John. That's my purview of my 15 to 20 years of health and safety experience. This city, if we applied to do some work for anyone, would not get hired. And what are we doing with that $298,960? That's the cost of people not working. Why are they not working? Because, and I'm just going to suggest this, notwithstanding the number of incidents have reduced, the level of lost time incidents has gone up 7%. And what I don't see is any kind of mitigation strategy relative to that number of $300,000. In my previous world, if I wasn't able to fix that, I'd get fired. And that's not even a joke. I had jobs where they would, one of the companies I worked for, that was my job, to go to problem projects and put out those kind of fires. And it was mandatory. We couldn't work with this kind of a number floating around us. Because what that means is we have more people at risk than this number, and those numbers are going to go up without some sort of mitigation strategy. So one of the things that I believe should be a movement in council is to bring forth into the administration an early and safe return to work program, one of the things that I'm expert at, right? Because we don't have to have 24 people who can't go to work anymore. We can have 24 people, and by the way, that number 24 has got to go down to 2, 3, maybe 4. With 1,600 employees, 24 injuries in a year of people who can't return to work, it is not tenable. It is not reasonable. This number, if we don't do something, will be higher next year.
That we need to grow.
Oh, excuse me. I somehow turned on the mayor again. But we need to do something about that number, and this is how we do it. Early and safe return to work programs. I can't get into the minutia of what those are. They are quite involved, but the city has the ability. If the city spends 20 grand on an ESRTW, they're going to save 300 grand. And I can guarantee that based on my expertise in health and safety and how the statistical data is created for this. So to have 24 lost time incidents openly and not mitigate that somehow with an early and safe return to work program, it's not tenable, all right? So we're just throwing money to the wind. Most of these 24 people could have been working in some way to reduce those costs. Oh, and by the way, in their analysis in the report, man hours are not included. So they're telling me I got 24 incidents at 200 or 300 grand. The frequency is at 1.77, which I think that's an incorrect number, because if you've got 24 lost time incidents, 1,600 people thereabouts, I need those man hours to do the calculation, but 1.7 does not seem correct. And I'm just saying, based on my experience, having done this analysis for hundreds of companies, we're missing the man hours so that we can input the 200,000 factor and get an actual calculation of what the lost time incident rate really is. I think it's actually much higher than 1.7. And to have our WorkSafe NB rate more than $1 above other municipalities, we've got to handle that. And again, an early and safe return to work program would be fine. And I did review evidence of a health and safety program under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and I did note that the city is claiming the 5 and 22 health and safety program. Well, I've worked for many companies around the world and many companies in St. John, and I actually worked for WorkSafe New Brunswick. 5 and 22 is a guide. It's not a program. It's a guide to employers to assist them in creating programs specific to their industries. Am I making any sense here? So to put in this document, 5 and 22 is your health and safety program as the city of St. John. Come on. Anybody that's in health and safety knows that WorkSafe New Brunswick has provided the 5 and 22 program as a guide. And with so many different aspects of the work that the city does, 5 and 22, isn't it? A very specific departmentalized health and safety program is required because of the different aspects of work, from working to the office to, snow plowing. Every one of those departments needs a health and safety program specific to what they do. Now, we can call it the City of St. John Health and Safety Program, but within that program, it'll be departmentalized when it comes to safe work procedures and safe work practices. I mean, the girl who takes my check or takes my money when I'm actually, with the person who takes my money when I'm paying for my parking tickets, the program that they need to be involved in is different than the guy that's out there raking leaves in the park, right? And then in the winter, maybe driving a little snow buggy. And I'm just saying 5 and 22 is not a program, it's a guide. So it kind of takes away the strength of this document, right? When you see that as a health and safety expert, now the untrained eye will go, oh, they have this cool 5 and 22, let's look that up. And once you look it up, you'll realize that 5 and 22 is a guideline provided by the government, not a health and safety program specific to the city of St. John. And I'd love to see the city of St. John's program. And for that matter, as a councillor, being that it's an interest of mine, I would love to help the city of St. John implement an early and safe return to work program so that 24 goes down and 300,000 goes way down. And that's possible, and together we can do that, okay?
And we need to invest the dollars and the resources in the appropriate areas. And then, I'm just reflecting.
I'm actually online right now, fellas. Sorry, just sending a message. I'm on now. My apologies. One of my colleagues wanted to make sure that they were able to listen in. So as I go through this workforce report, now that I'm done with the health and safety, you can tell I'm a little passionate about health and safety. I'm looking at the obvious stuff. Can't miss it. The benefits and salaries portion of this report speaks to the escalating wage challenge here in New Brunswick, or here in St. John. 50% approximately of all the wages and benefits and resources from the budget are committed to fire and police, okay? That's a challenge. And it's a challenge because, one, our employment goes up. Our unemployment is up. Our economy is going down, but the employment wages for members of those particular departments, those particular resources is going up. And I've said this before, and I'm going to skip through this a little bit to the meat of it. I mean, the real challenge, right? Because there are several pages of financial information, but at the end of the day, what really matters is what's going out and what's not coming in. So to see the wages between 2004 to 2019 creep up so that the management's wages have gone up 30% in those years. The unions have gone up, 486, Local 46 has gone up 38% across from 2004 to 2016. Fire has gone up 59%. QP18 has gone up 40%, and the St. John Police Association 55%. Now, what's the challenge with that? The consumer price index really hasn't moved, right? So why are these wages going up, double? A 60% wage increase since 2004 with no CPI movement. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical, because as those wages go up, we haven't received more income, and we'll get to the issue of income relative to property tax, which is a big issue, tax reform. I know it's an issue. There's a third-party external, that's the province, but it is what I'm going to talk about today, because there are some simple solutions which obviously I can support. And one of the simple solutions is looking at these wages. I'm not suggesting that these individuals who earn these wages do not deserve to get paid. I'm saying let's look at similar communities, and I know the challenge is our industrial footprint makes us very dissimilar from other communities when it comes to that. But a 60% wage increase since 2004 for the fire department with no committed economy. The economy hasn't gone up. The CPI hasn't gone up. So why are we raising wages by 60%? Why are we raising wages by 40%? Why are we raising wages by 55%? It doesn't make sense to me. So this is one of those challenges that I think we need to look at. And I know there are some other items related to that when it comes to collective agreements, etc. But the consumer price index hasn't really moved relative to these wage increases, so it really doesn't make any sense. Am I making any sense here? That these would be items that we got to look at. Okay? If wages had gone up, relative to the consumer price index in our town, St. John would have saved $100 million since 2004 to now. What would we have done with $100 million if wages had followed the CPI? That's a lot of money, right? That we can put into infrastructure, that we can put into programs that will recruit fresh faces, right? Fresh faces, intelligent people, right? Some of that money could have gone into appropriate wage scale increases to attract dynamic and diverse communities. I'm just going to look at that. Fred, I hope property tax reform happens soon. I agree, Fred. I mean, Fred, one of the folks on this live, Fred's new to the community. I understand he's a mover and a shaker when it comes to the property world. And he's new, and he's saying, whoa, this double tax is really affecting me. Fred, I hear you. Can I change it? Can I make you a promise that that's going to change immediately? No, I can't do that. But what I can tell you is that it's on my list of commitments. It's on my list of things to work towards, right? Because I know that makes sense. But we'll get to tax reform in a moment. I'm still hooked on this consumer price index and the wage increase. We would have saved $100 million that we could have put to good use. Am I making any sense here? Where we put it, let's talk about that later. It's still $100 million. Again, in this document, they also get deeply into some recommendations. So one of the recommendations, look, I've already talked about it, is employee health and wellness. Let's implement a real health and safety program. I mean, really, let's get one that actually works. Let's include an emphasis on an early and safe return to work, right? That's $300,000 a year that we're spending for folks who can't go to work. And again, I've worked across all private industries, commercial, industrial, oil and gas, all of that. I even worked as a regulator for WorkSafe New Brunswick. And when you show up, like I used to investigate fatalities for WorkSafe New Brunswick. And what I'm telling you is there are ways to avoid that $300,000, and I want to help you. I'm competent in that regard for certain. And an early and safe return to work program is one way of saving those dollars. Look, I know how to keep people working, even when they're hurting, right? Such that it doesn't aggravate the hurt. And they still get paid, and they're not, having to deal with compensation. And the city's not having to deal with 24 lost time incidents and $398,000 worth of expenses. It's just untenable. You do that every year. $300,000 a year, $300,000 a year, $300,000 a year. Creating lost time indicators is fantastic. But unless you fix the lagging indicators, those leading indicators, and the city has implemented a lot of leading indicators, supervisors going to jobs, inspections, hazard assessments that I see here. Great. And if those are things that have just been implemented, it's not, and without proper education and reinforcement of those leading indicators, the numbers of indicators means nothing if you're still coming up with 24 lost time incidents and $398,000 in lost time costs. So, early and safe return to work program is definitely the angle that I would be taking on that. Now, another one of the recommendations that I thought, and it was a typo, but I'm going to make light of it, right? It says, increase the promotion and awareness of total compensation package offered by the City of St. John within our employee groups. Salary and benefits offered are competitive, particularly in the entry to mid-level roles. And one of the other recommendations, and it's typo, it says explore possible, so I think they were going to put something there, but I would suggest I'd finish this sentence with explore possibly a diversity campaign. Why not? We got the mayor and a lot of leading St. Johners spending most of their time this morning talking about equity, equality, diversity, because I'm looking at 6 other people who were on another show, except for one, or 8, except for one, everybody's Caucasian, and they're all talking about equality, diversification, and what we need in this city for it to raise up. I'm just saying, somewhere in this annual workforce report, a recommendation should be that we diversify the workforce, get different perspectives. There are people who are here, who are professionals and administrators in the BIPOC community who we should be recruiting, right? Jeepers, I even applied to work for the city a few times as their solicitor. Not even a call, but I guess maybe I'm not qualified, being that I am a solicitor. Just saying, and that's not me. I don't want that job per se. I want this job. But let's change our perspective. Let's change the recruiting tactics that we use. It's not really all about the money. It's about satisfaction. And if you do not make folks welcome, right, or even if you do not invite professionals from the BIPOC community to apply for these jobs, we're not going to create diversity. So there has to be a specific campaign relative to diversity. The next point that I really want to talk about, because it's a real issue, and I'll find the document as we speak, but is tax reform. And I'm talking about industrial property assessment reform. There are several options. There are options for, and again, it's a provincial concern also, so this will take some work. This will take some lobbying. And again, I think I've said in my last live, St. John has a very specific commitment, and its geographic commitment to the industrial property tax footprint, i.e., we have the biggest industrial footprint in the province from Moncton, Fredericton, what have you. And also we have the largest resource drain as a result of that industrial footprint. Challenge being, a whole bunch of our money, $9 million or something, goes to the provincial government, right? So we have, a tax base, not the full value of it, but a committed tax base with a possible influx in the 20s of millions, right? At about $20 million that we could be collecting. 9 million of it goes to the government. St. John gets 12 million, and then the government will send us some money at the end of the year. And again, my apologies for not using the proper terms. I'm just a citizen out here. But then the government will send us back some money, much lower amount. Okay. And as I source my document here, we'll talk further about it. But I don't think I need actually to follow a document. It's clear. We need to ensure, and I can't promise it, but I'm going to be pushing for it, that one, the residential, I know, Fred, residential tax reform is required, right? Because landlords are paying double tax. I'll get to that. I understand it. But presently, what could fix our economy and our bank account is keeping that $9 million that goes to the government, right? And we deserve to keep it because all of our city resources on a 24/7 basis are committed to servicing that industrial footprint all the way out to Point Lepreau. How much does that cost us a year, right? If we're providing all of those services, giving a huge chunk of the tax money for those particular industrial footprints, then it's not tenable. It should be clearly obvious to the province that in that regard, tax reform is needed. And here's the beautiful thing about it to you industrial footprint folks, the industrial sector footprint creators. We're not creating a new tax assessment. Having said that, in recent years, our industrial footprint's gotten larger, but our tax base has gone down. The assessments have gone down. That's a challenge that the government, I believe, needs to handle. But in phase one of this restructure in the tax reform plan, we need to be just looking at keeping those taxes in the city. We're not saying we're going to tax the big industrial owners. It's not a reassessment opportunity. It's a fair assessment opportunity down the road. But phase one just says, government, give us back our money, or just let us keep it. That makes logical sense to me, because as the other communities' industrial footprint goes up, their return on taxes also is going up. But as St. John's industrial footprint gets larger, our tax assessments are going down and the government's still keeping $9 million. Am I making any sense here that should, properly stay within the coffers of St. John? Again, one of the challenges that I recognize, and one of the things that I'm going to work towards. Again, I can't make anybody promises about what the real deal is going to do, but I can tell you I'm going to be real, I'm going to be competent, and I'm going to know what I'm talking about, right? I've been in school most of my life, but I'm 49 years old, so I've had some life experience, and, what I know is that, charisma is fantastic, and I see a whole lot of folks out there out of the 30 with a lot of charisma. But as you know, charisma is not a standalone opportunity. You need folks around you that be charismatic, but you don't need anybody to have character and credibility and competency. That's all on you. So once all the adoring crowds are gone, my friends, you need competency, character, and credibility. That's what I bring to the table, and that's what I hope that you folks will recognize as you go to the polls and you look for Neil Clements and you vote for me, right? So I'm going to give you folks an opportunity. It's 10:45. We got 15 minutes. If you have questions, and there's not a lot of you on, and everybody's on the mayor's live. I'm going to have to do this at 11 next time, obviously. But if you have questions, I'd be happy to take the opportunity to answer your questions. Thank you, Angela, for, I thought I made a good point there too. So that's my live for today. I wanted to really focus you folks on easy things to do. And I mean, I say easy, but I say obvious, right? Next week, I'll choose a couple more of these documents, because it isn't just to me to be reviewing this content that the mayor has so graciously provided for all of the candidates. It's to you to know that what I'm saying is real. I look forward to serving this community in the capacity as Councilor at Large. I look forward to being, quite frankly, one of the first black councilors in 20 years. These are things that I want. Will they help the city? Well, what I'm committed to doing will help the city. All of that is just extra. Fred, I appreciate you too, my brother. please spread the word, okay, amongst your community, amongst our community, that the real deal's here for real, right? Next week, I'll cover a few other pressing matters, but my platform is growth and change. By the way, I'll say it again, there will be no growth in this community if we don't handle the immigration piece. That's right. We have to learn how to treat newcomers like St. Johners when they commit to this city. And again, we'll get back to that, lost votes campaign, which I believe you all should go look at. But we need to look at that. So next week, I'm going to dig deep into the poverty issue. I said it in the beginning of my live. I'm a lawyer now, but my mom was a single mom with 3 boys, and we lived in a trailer outside the city. And that was a dangerous place for a young black boy. I very quickly learned how to thumb and be in the city. I grew up in the South End, and I understand poverty. And during that last election, I saw poverty that I couldn't fathom in the lower west side and in the southern peninsula. I'm not knocking on association doors and getting the information. I'm out there on the street seeing it. I don't have to go to a group to ask, hey, what's the problems? I can do the research. Go to Live SJ, read their annual report, read their content, and that will tell you about what they're doing, which I didn't know about Live SJ, but in my research to be competent to help run this city, I've discovered that Live SJ and the urban UNB Urban Communities group, you need to know about what they're doing. Okay, if you're really committed to educational, closing the educational gap, providing for affordable housing, and right uptown here, there's an amazing project happening right now. Who's in charge of that? St. John Nonprofit Housing. Previous colleague of mine, Narendra Singh. I congratulate you. Every time I walk by that project the last few days, I'm getting more and more excited about the uniqueness of that project and the fact that it's a mixed building. That is, there's going to be some low-income housing, and there's going to be some regular market housing, and that excites me because you need to see where you can be, right? We need people of higher incomes and people of low income communicating with each other, sharing ideas. This is what I concerns me. This is what concerns you. And I learned where I could be by seeing others there. And I got to tell you, that idea of the mixed income housing, that'll take you there. And I believe in that 100%. But again, I don't come from wealth, right? I don't have passed down wealth that took me where I am today. It was all hard work, dragging my ass out of poverty. And if you don't believe that, go find yourself a Clements and they'll tell you the story. So that's one of my focuses. Please go to Live SJ and really dig into their content. They're working on closing the education gap. They're working on providing proper housing for people of low income, etc. And they're also working on providing residential health care, providing access to health care in some very specific communities, Crescent Valley, the lower South End Peninsula, lower West Side. They're really focused on these impoverished communities, quite frankly. And the weird thing about the lower peninsula is, you can go to Duke Street and there's a block there that's clearly, the block is clearly low income and impoverished. One block up the street, you've got million dollar buildings. I've never understood that about St. John. And I'm not suggesting that those folks that own that wealthy part of Orange Street, that's well done, I'm just saying the disparity between the blocks is not logical. And again, that's another issue when it comes to housing in St. John and some deplorable buildings, etc., that we can speak to at council, and I plan to. But I also understand that some of those buildings that people are saying that should be torn down and people shouldn't be living there, that's because of the issue with landlords who no longer live in town and consortiums and corporations external to the province buying up these properties and then raising the rent. That makes it impossible for low-income folks to live in these lower-income buildings owned by private owners. So I I'm absolutely appreciating and celebrating the low income and the mixed income opportunities that are being created. I absolutely appreciate the work that LiveSJ has done. Again, go to LiveSJ and read their annual report. See what they're doing. Get yourself educated about, the real challenge communities or neighborhoods in St. John, so that you can reach out to those neighborhoods. Again, I mentioned LiveSJ, but I'm pushing out their data because it's important that you know. But again, I'm not showing up at associations and groups and saying, hey, I'm Neil, what can I promise you? I'm identifying the issues that council can deal with and communicating my ideas about what we can do as a council, as a community, to work together. So that's all I got to say today. Real Deal Neil, keeping it real for you. I hope I had some real I hope I had some real information. I hope I gave you some real answers about what I stand for: growth and change. I'm not going to be sorry for the change I'm asking for, and I definitely think you all understand the growth that's required. And some of that change is financial, fiscal, economic, that the city can handle like that. Some of that change is social, which the city has never handled, but now has an opportunity. Some of that growth is fiscal and economic, as I've talked about the tax reform. But a lot of that growth is new immigration. My friend Fred here on the call, new to St. John. Right, I've met so many new to St. Johners who want to be a part of this city and help it grow. We need to be friendly. And just saying, one of the things that I would probably do in my move towards diversity is, let me see. Oh, every document that the city of St. John puts out has this photo on it. My challenge is, if as a counselor reviewing all of these documents, every time I open a new PowerPoint that I've printed off, I don't see myself in here. If you're a BIPOC, you don't see yourself in there. And this is what the city is using to communicate to its employees and other people like me. Well, I want to see myself in there. I don't mean I want to see myself in council. Of course I do. But where are the black and brown and otherwise engaged employees in the city of St. John? Bringing new perspective and new ideas and new dynamic thought to the table. This is easy stuff to fix. And I might sound a little angry about it, because I am. I mean, I grew up here. I was born here. Growth and change. If you believe in that too, and you are looking for committed, competent, intelligent, educated folks who know what they're doing when it comes to governance, I implore you, vote for Neil Clements, Real Deal Neil, on May 10th. I will be filing these documents on Monday. So if you haven't seen me in the newspaper, because I'm running a campaign that's zigging while the rest of the world is zagging, and no one's going to tell me when I need to do things. I need you to support me in my ideals. Practical, 2 + 2 is 4 math. That's what I'm applying, folks. As I said in my last live, I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. We've got a wheel. It's called St. John, and it just needs a couple spokes, maybe tighten a few, and this wheel will spin correctly, right, and efficiently, and we'll be able to have a city that will go into the future and have a lot of success. But that success has to include the entire community. Make it a great day. Choose to win. Vote Neil Clements, Councilor at Large. The Real Deal Neil, for real. Make it a great day and choose to win, folks.